Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at AQA Alevel Psychology 2020 Paper 1 Exemplar Answers for Memory, which you need to know for AQA Alevel Psychology. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Please note that these answers have been produced with knowledge of the mark scheme but have not been approved by the mark scheme themselves. There are 3 assessment objectives, AOs, in psychology. In this video they are color-coded. AO1 Knowledge, purple. AO2 Application, blue. AO3 Evaluation, red and green. Question 1. Which type of long-term memory would be most associated with the following? Write the correct type of long-term memory in the spaces provided. Stored with reference to contextual information, e.g. time and place, 1 mark. Difficult to describe in words, 1 mark. Knowing the meaning of a word, 1 mark. Stored with reference to contextual information, e.g. time and place, 1 mark, episodic memory. Difficult to describe in words, 1 mark, procedural memory. Knowing the meaning of a word, 1 mark, semantic memory. A researcher investigated retrieval failure using an independent group's design. In condition A, 10 participants learnt 30 words and recalled them in the same room. In condition B, another 10 participants learnt the same 30 words in one room and recalled them in a different room. The results for condition B are shown below. Table 1. The researcher decided to use the mean to analyze the results. Question 2. State one advantage of an independent group's design. 1 mark. One advantage of independent group's design is that it reduces demand characteristics. Participants are usually not made aware that there are other conditions and therefore are less likely to guess that the aim of the study and change their behavior. Question 3. Suggest a more appropriate measure of central tendency for this dataset and explain why it would be more appropriate. 3 marks. The median would be a more appropriate measure of central tendency because there are large anomalous outliers in the dataset, which would distort the mean value, making it unrepresentative of the dataset as a whole, whereas the median is resilient to outliers and is not affected by extreme values or outliers. This makes the median a better measure of central tendency when dealing with skewed distributions. Question 4. Another explanation for forgetting is interference. Using an example, explain what is meant by retroactive interference. 3 marks. Retroactive interference is when new, recently learnt information interferes with and disrupts the recall of previously learnt information. For example, when you learn your new mobile phone number but are unable to remember your old one, when a teacher learns all the names of their new class that they forget the names of their old class. Danielle was walking down the high street when she witnessed a crime. A young man attacked an elderly woman. After a struggle, the man ran away with the woman's handbag. Danielle and another couple of witnesses stayed with the woman until the police arrived. Question 5. Explain how the police could use the cognitive interview to help Danielle's recall of the event. 6 marks. Danielle could be asked to mentally reinstate the context, mentally recreating an image of the situation, including environmental and personal details and the person's emotional state of the event. For example, Danielle may be asked to recall the time of day, weather, sights, sounds, who they were with or feelings and thoughts. These details will act as a trigger or cue to help Danielle recall more information based on the principle of retrieval failure cue-dependent forgetting. Danielle could be asked to report everything and recall every single detail they can remember from the event, even those that may seem trivial, irrelevant, unimportant, or details that the witness isn't confident on. For example, Danielle could be asked to recall what the offender or witnesses were wearing. These details can act as triggers for other memories and help Danielle recall more important information or highlight something that has been overlooked. Danielle could be asked to recall from a changed perspective and mentally recreate the situation from a different point of view and recall the event from someone else's perspective. For example, Danielle might consider what the offender or another witness saw. This is done to disrupt the effect of expectations and schemas on recall and promote a more holistic view which may enhance recall. Finally, Danielle may be asked to recall in reverse order and recall the events in reverse chronological order to the original sequence. For example, from the end to the beginning. This is done to prevent Danielle reporting her expectations of how the event must have happened rather than the actual events, therefore improving accuracy. It also prevents dishonesty, as it will be harder for Danielle to produce a dishonest account if she has to reverse it. Question 6. Outline and evaluate research into duration in memory, 8 marks. Peterson and Peterson, 1959, aimed to investigate the duration of short-term memory, STM, and how information retention is affected by the absence of rehearsal. They conducted a study using a sample of college students. Participants were presented with a trigram, 3-letter combinations e.g. XQJ or TGH. Immediately after seeing the trigram, participants were asked to count backwards in threes from a specified number, e.g., 100, 97, 94, for a set period. This counting task was designed to prevent rehearsal of the trigram. The time intervals for counting backwards varied among 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18 seconds. After the counting task, participants were asked to recall the trigram. They found that the ability to recall the trigrams declined significantly as the interval increased. After 3 seconds, approximately 80% recall accuracy. After 6 seconds, recall accuracy decreased. After 18 seconds, recall accuracy dropped to about 10%. They concluded that STM has a very limited duration when rehearsal is prevented, typically around 15 to 30 seconds. This demonstrated the transient nature of information stored in STM and contributed to the understanding of memory processes. A strength of Peterson and Peterson's study is that it has high control over extraneous variables, which enhances the reliability of the results. The researchers employed a standardized procedure, ensuring that all participants were subjected to the same conditions during the experiment. For instance, they used a fixed duration for the retention interval and a consistent method for presenting stimuli, which minimizes the influence of outside factors that could affect memory performance. By controlling these variables, the study can more accurately attribute any observed effects on memory recall to the manipulated independent variable, rather than to fluctuations in participant behavior or environmental conditions. This is a strength because it suggests that the findings of the study are more credible and can be generalized to a wider population. The high control over extraneous variables means that the results are less likely to be influenced by external factors, which enhances the confidence in the conclusions drawn about memory processes. This controlled environment allows researchers to pinpoint the specific effects of the independent variable on memory recall, making the study's implications more reliable and applicable to understanding memory in various contexts. A limitation of Peterson and Peterson's study is that it lacks ecological validity, meaning that the findings may not be applicable to real-world situations. The study was conducted in a controlled laboratory environment where participants were asked to memorize trigrams and then perform a distraction task. This artificial setting does not reflect how memory is used in everyday life, where people often remember more complex information and are influenced by various external factors. In real-life scenarios, memory tasks are usually more meaningful and context-rich, which can enhance recall. Because the study's conditions are so far removed from typical memory tasks, it raises questions about whether the results can be generalized to how memory functions outside of the lab. This is a limitation because it suggests that the conclusions drawn from the study may not accurately reflect how memory operates in everyday situations. The lack of ecological validity indicates that the findings could be influenced by the artificial nature of the experimental environment, which fails to capture the complexities and nuances of real-life memory tasks. As a result, The applicability of the research to practical scenarios is questionable, limiting its overall significance in understanding memory processes. Baric, 1975, aimed to investigate the duration of very long-term memory, particularly the retention of information over several decades. They conducted a study involving 392 high school graduates who had graduated between 2 weeks and 57 years prior to the study. Researchers used high school yearbooks to test participants' memory of their classmates' names and faces. There were multiple tests used, including free recall. Participants were asked to recall the names of as many classmates as they could. Photo recognition. Participants were shown photographs from their yearbooks and asked to identify their classmates. Name recognition. Participants were given a list of names and asked to identify which ones were their classmates. And matching test. Participants were asked to match names to photographs. They found in the recognition tests, participants performed remarkably well on the photo and name recognition tests, even after several decades. Recognition accuracy was about 90% within 15 years of graduation and still around 70 to 80% after 48 years. In the recall test, performance on free recall was significantly lower than recognition, with a steep decline over time. Recall accuracy was around 60% within 15 years and dropped to about 30% after 48 years. They concluded that certain types of information, especially those that are well learned and rehearsed over time, can be retained in very long-term memory for decades. Recognition memory tends to be more durable than recall memory, supporting the idea that some memories are stored in a permastore state. A strength of Baric's study is that it has high ecological validity. This means that the research was conducted in a naturalistic setting, which makes the findings more applicable to real-life situations. Baric's study involved participants recalling information from their actual school years, which reflects how memory works in everyday contexts. By using real-world memories, such as recognizing faces and names of former classmates, the study captures the complexity of memory retrieval as it occurs in real life. This contrasts with laboratory studies that often use artificial tasks, which may not represent how we remember information in our daily lives. This is a strength because it suggests that the findings are more reliable and can be applied to real-world situations. The use of naturalistic settings and real-life memories means that the results are likely to reflect how people actually remember information, rather than how they might perform in a controlled lab environment. This enhances our understanding of memory processes and their relevance to everyday life. A limitation of Baric's study is that it lacks population validity. The sample used in the study may not be representative of the broader population. Baric primarily focused on a specific demographic of individuals who had attended school in a specific area and during a specific time period, which could introduce biases related to geographic location, socioeconomic status, or educational background. This is a limitation because it suggests that the findings may not be able to be generalized to other groups, such as individuals from different regions, cultures, or age groups who may have different memory retrieval processes. If the sample does not adequately reflect the diversity of the larger population, it limits the extent to which we can apply the results to understand memory for everyone. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.